Hey everybody, it's Jeff Gust here from the Depot on Patreon. Welcome to our Burlington Northern A-Line and HO scale video series. Please take a moment to hit that subscribe button and also click on that notification bell so you can be up to date with new and exciting content from the Depot. Astoria, Oregon boasts that it is one of the oldest European settlements west of the Rockies. In the beginning, the area saw many explorers like the Lewis and Clark expedition and fearless seafaring legends like Captain Robert Gray. It wasn't until the year 1811 that Astoria was officially founded by New York millionaire, successful fur trader, and legendary explorer John Jacob Astor. Astoria began as a fur trading hub in the Northwest and soon earned a reputation for all of its natural resources, including the two major ones, salmon and timber. Railroads were built to aid in the efforts of harvesting and moving these commodities to port or to transport to other major markets. Over the years, the A-Line has seen many owners and operators. The first rails were laid in 1890 by the Astoria and South Coast Railway, connecting Astoria to Warrenton and Seaside. By 1898, tracks were built east along the Columbia River by the Astoria and Columbia River Railroad. This connected Astoria to Gobel, Oregon, and the James Hill Empire via the Northern Pacific Railroad. By 1907, Hill would purchase the entire line from Seaside to Gobel and then connect to Portland so that the Northern Pacific had water-level access to the Pacific Ocean and overseas markets. With Astoria's economy booming, along came the bold, the brave, and the tourism. Passenger service extended south of Astoria to Seaside to accommodate the weekend warrior traffic. Eventually, Spokane, Portland, and Seattle Railway would be the longest-serving steward to the A-Line to date. Jumping several years forward, much of the James Hill Empire eventually merged into one large Class I railroad. In 1970, the CB&Q, Northern Pacific, the Great Northern, and the SP&S became the Burlington Northern Railroad. The Burlington Northern owned and operated the A-Line for the next 27 years. In 1997, the line was sold to the Portland and Western Railroad, who remains its current owner. Unfortunately, passenger and freight service does not extend past Wana, 24 miles to the east of Astoria. Astoria had big hopes early on in becoming a major port on the West Coast. many nationally famous brands of canned fish came from Astoria. From the 1890s through the 1950s, the canning business boomed, as did the town of Astoria and its population. However, the 1970s showed a major decline in the local fish canning operation, and by the 1980s, the canneries were all gone, leaving just the pilings behind. In the case of this particular model railroad, we will be focusing primarily on the era that the Burlington Northern ran the line, specifically focusing on 1988 through 1997. We are also going to take a few modern liberties as to bring a slightly different fate to the area than our current timeline. The first exception will be that a few canneries did in fact remain in business through the 80s and 90s and are current active shippers. The other exception will be that the BN allocated additional funding in the late 80s to update the line with heavier track in order to accommodate modern equipment. However, standard track warrant control operations, station names, train numbers, and schedules that the BN assumed from the days of the SP&S will remain in practice. Trains 21 and 22 will be the only scheduled trains on the A line and will continue to provide daily passenger service as far as Astoria. The line south to Seaside no longer exists. Here we see Train 21 as a beautifully restored set of 3 Budd RDCs purchased by the city of Portland and dubbed the Lewis and Clark Expedition. For most model railroaders, compression can be one of the most challenging aspects of the hobby. Railroads by nature are extremely large and take up an enormous amount of space. Finding enough space is often challenging, even for the most skilled modeler working in narrow gauge or an N scale. One of the tricks I have discovered to reduce the sometimes undesirable but unavoidable effects of compression, and still offer a lot of value, is to focus on one point on the railroad. The following mainly applies to those working with small spaces. If you are lucky enough to have a large space, congratulations. If not, consider this. Instead of attempting a design with multiple points or stations and compromise running time, let's entertain the old phrase, less is more. The general idea is to consider less visible running time and embrace more of the railfan perspective. Unless you have superpowers or have discovered how to manipulate time and space, we can only be at one place at any given time. The railfan perspective simply means choosing one favorite spot and then focus on modeling that scene. A great example of this might be just modeling the famous Waylong sighting at Tehachapi Loop. maybe the bridge at Ketty Y, or perhaps high above the incredibly photogenic horseshoe curve on the old Pennsylvania Railroad. Bottom line is that the advantage to modeling one specific place or scene allows you the ability to alleviate some of the restrictions from compression by enjoying model railroading from the railfan perspective. This layout I have chosen to model the end of the line on the A line in Astoria, Oregon. At the heart of the A-line track plan is a fusion of elements from the prototype in confluence with a modernization of the famous time saver design from John Allen. Bringing the magnifying glass even closer in, I'm focusing on the area downtown between 5th Street and 11th Street where the old Cannery Row sat. Most shoreline canneries were constructed from locally harvested evergreen trees and built out over the water on wooden piers. However, by the 1980s, most of the wooden piers were gone. What did remain, however, was a few businesses that hugged the shoreline, which made street and wharf running a necessity. Now, let's look at the track plan. Here's the original track plan designed using the anti-rail platform. This model road will be a 12-foot by 5-foot shelf layout design. I like to think of this as an expanded time saver. John Allen's original switching puzzle had only 5 turnouts. This plan incorporates 7. Here's how the layout construction will unfold, starting with the benchwork. Then the track. Next, the ballast. Then adding some basic turf elements. Just add water. Next comes the roads, pier, wharf, and structures. Then adding the final details and scenery to completion. Thank you for watching this video. We'll see you next time here on The Depot.